10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Paul Chandler, the Shy Yeti. He's not that shy.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, you know.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Good boy. He's not all that shy, is right.
Blimey, Governor. It's the Shy Life Podcast.
Excellent.
515.
Hello, campers. How are you?
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Shy Life Podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How you doing? Well, I'm all right. I'm back this time with Nick. Hello, Nick.
It's me again. Hello.
Yes. A man of few words. No, although...
Well, no, you have to be fed them by a computer.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you may have guessed, listeners, we're doing another of our word episodes, although it's amazing how one word could trigger so much chatter. So it's...
One word.
The computer gives us one word, and we give them hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of words. But anyway, yeah, we don't know what the words are, so let's get the theme music playing. When we come back, we'll get talking. Yes. Run that theme music.
Darling, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Look, it's positive thinking. The highlights, the Shy Life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
Hello, Paul.
We don't want forward
I'll go anywhere for a potato.
This particular episode of The Shy Life is a little more abstract than usual.
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, I hope he hasn't found out my secret. I think he has.
If you thought that was bad, listen to this.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life Podcast.
So we do recycling. Yeah, I am strangely drawn to Yeti Uncle John's ankles as well.
But has the Shy Life Podcast slowed down? I don't think so.
It's all gooey and yum.
Right, we're back. I suppose we should just start.
Well, let's do it. Yes. Let's do the show right here.
I'm not sure that when we've done it before, doing more than one word at a time
We did, yes.
has really benefited.
Not really,
I don't think it's
no.
necessarily benefited, but we might do one towards the end. I think we'll just stick to one word mostly. The first word we have is bee,
B.
as in buzz, buzz, buzz.
Buzz.
Oh, I guess it could be the letter B, because I guess that's how you'd spell the letter B as well. If you've got to stop something about particularly
The letter
like
B.
that.
I think
So either buzz, buzz, buzz B. Or
I think I'll go for the buzz.
Yeah.
In the 1970s, mid-1970s, on the Southampton Road, which is now the car park of Home Bargains, and which the whole area has been built up immensely since the 70s, there were allotments, one of which belonged to my mum. And on the end of the allotments, near the road, were some beehives. This is probably my first encounter with beehives. I knew enough about bees to know that they stung and you need to be careful with them. But I was actually pretty fascinated with these beehives. I think if people were keeping when people keep beehives now, they wouldn't keep them on the road. I mean, the pollution would be very good for the poor lads. But I suppose back then it wasn't quite so populous. But yes, I was fascinated with these, fascinated and fearful, I must admit. But I remember getting a book. Was it bought for me? I think it was bought for me. It wasn't a Ladybird book, but it was similar, a bit larger format to a Ladybird book, and it was all about bees and beekeeping. And but yeah, it was explained, the whit was fascinating, and I can easily see why people keep bees. It would freak me out a little bit, I think, but they are fascinating. Of course, for years they've been blighted with all sorts of infections, and I know that even when I started, before I started at the hospital. I was a hospital DJ, and I remember even back then in '97, going up and down Odstock Road, there was always a dying or dead bee, and it's a scenario I see every day even now, and you think the poor creatures, that what's wrong with them, but of course the scientists are very worried about bees and the future of bees, and the fact that but I think last year with COVID and mankind had gone to ground, I don't think last year was too bad a year for bees. I think it was pretty buzzing. But no, and also I was stung by a bee in the summer of '79. Now I was quite pleased that I'd got through my life without being stung by a bee. I was always a little bit fearful of it, and I was sat down with my friend on the path in our back garden at Kent Road, and I felt a pain in my leg, and I looked down, and there was this sort of sting with a fluffy bit on the end, and this bee very groggily kind of heading down the garden path to die. And I think it wasn't so much the pain, it was the fact that I had been stung. I'd actually been stung, and I'd seen people stung on. I know that I'd seen people stung on TV or in the movies, or and I think it was the shock of that it actually had happened to me more than the pain that sort of sent me into hysterics. But yes, they leave us like a sponge on the end, which sort of is where the poison goes in. I think they knocked it off before there was poison. But no, it was. I don't think I've been stung since, unless I've got so butch now that I don't notice.
I've been stung by wasps a few times, but I don't think I've been stung by bees. I got stung by a wasp when I remember particularly when I was working at Sandhurst in the library, and we were returning books to the shelf because we had this renovation, and it was the summer, and I wasn't wearing smart clothes. I was just wearing a t-shirt, and I used to wear sort of like a shirt unbuttoned over the top of the t-shirt, and a wasp must have flown and got caught trapped between the two layers, and then got scared and tried to sting me.
Nasty. And succeeded.
And succeeded, yeah. And we also had wasps when I was in Camberley. We had wasps up in the roof space above my room.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, I shouldn't talk too much about wasps because we might get wasp as a word later on.
I have to say that wasps, I've actually, despite the fact that I've probably seen more wasps than I have bees in my life, and that they were the bane of my life at one point. I've touched wood. I've never actually been stung by one, and that's knowing my love of sweet things. I'm actually rather amazed about that. So it's more luck than anything else. But bees, yes, I'm much more. I'm not less freaked out by bees now, and I always try and kind of help them. Sort of help them out. There was one that got caught in our lounge the other day, and because we're fortunate because we got plenty of windows and a back door, so it didn't even. Though he was a bit dozy, it didn't. He did eventually get out, but
we had the same thing the other day. We managed to help guide him towards the front door. But I feel like we probably had a bee's nest or some bees moving in my dad's allotment. I have a feeling that they were sort of grouped around hanging from a branch I think they had to be encouraged to go to fly on to either where there were hives or to somewhere that wasn't quite so dangerous for them and for people.
There was something about that on Facebook recently. A whole information about the whole. If you see a clump of bees, don't be alarmed. You know, they're just looking for they're homeless looking for a hive. Don't just move them on. I think compared to when we were kids, where it's me. And you set out, it's kill or be, the attitude is kill or be killed. I think this generation and even us are a little bit more educated on how it's important to sort of try and keep them alive if we can. I
always feel, often, more recently I had sort of honey and lemon drink. We have lemons in the fridge and we have honey, and I quite often like making a sort of honey and lemon drink before bed, and I think I have a sort of, it's probably a little bit silly, but I sort of feel that honey is sort of a magical quality.
It is. I mean, I like honey. I have it with my toast on Sunday mornings, and yes, and I'm most grateful to the little fellas. But
which, of course, I guess brings me to my association with. Although there are other things that I think of when I think of the word bee, I mean it's the first few letters, or not quite, but it sounds like the first few letters of the Beatles, who I was very interested in for many years, but they don't really have any proper bee links. And then I guess the other thing I thought of was how much I was always very interested in the B side of a record, and sort of sometimes the B side was more interesting than the A side. But I think whilst we've been talking, it's reminded me a more clear sort of B connection would probably be the story, or maybe the episode of Tales of the Unexpected.
Yes.
By Roald Dahl, which is one of the more sort of fanciful, weirder stories where a baby's fed raw jelly, and how it affects the baby.
Yes, I've got that one. But no, also talking of telly with bees, I think I've always had a sort of. Although I respect bees, I've always had a certain fear of bees and wasps' nests. And one of the things I remembered on telly was a children's serialisation that was done for schools and colleges programmes of a book called Sleepers on the Hill. Now, I've forgotten the title until recently. We were talking children's telly site. We were talking about it. I said, well, here's something I've never been able to pin down. Can anyone remember a children's program where they broke into an old cottage and discovered a bee's nest, and then on the last episode there were some baddies and they actually got rid of them by sort of disturbing the bee's nest. And Keith came to my rescue because he said, "Oh, that's Sleepers on the Hill." And the title immediately came back to me. I said, yeah, of course, from about 1974, 75. And I've got a book on my Amazon wish list. So, I thought, I'd like to, because the DVD it's not on DVD or anything, but I kind of like to read and go back and see what it's all about. But yeah, so it was, yeah. But a little bit scary still, bees' nests and things.
There was that episode of Doctor Who, or more recent Doctor Who, well, it's still old Doctor Who now, really, but the David Tennant episode, which was that weird. Some people seem to be very keen on it, and I never really clicked with me because it was partly about Agatha Christie and what happened to her when she vanished. And I think, as an Agatha Christie fan, that would have been enough.
Yeah, I think so.
Or maybe there could have been something, but I'm not quite sure what they went with. It would have been perfect fodder
for a pure historical, which I wish the production team on Doctor Who would grow up and have the balls to actually do. Everything has to be linked to be aliens, and it gets very repetitive. I know exactly what you mean. I didn't like that one. I thought it was the giant wasp was a bit of a daft monster.
I guess it was wasps. Not
it was a wasp, yeah.
Oh dear, see, I can't keep away from wasps.
And I thought, I suppose I get narky about the way clergy are portrayed. It was a typical ineffectual clergyman. I thought, oh yeah, here we go again. Same old. It wasn't terribly good. And of course, also with Doctor Who, not particularly convincingly done, but Delta and the Bannermen, with the rather bizarre idea of sort of trapping the baddies by globbing them with rather precious honey that the beekeeper's taken years to collect, and just so they can, at a momentary escape, bizarre. I like Delta and the Bannermen, but it's a bit of a cringeable moment.
I think it's probably time to move on to another word. Let's see what we come up with now. We have the word juice.
Juice. That should get our juices flowing. Do you want to start us off with juice?
I suppose the thing that comes to mind is what, like, probably quite a noughties thing. I expect it still does go on, but the UK seemed to go through a phase with having shops that just sold like muffins or just sold fairy cakes or like but really expensive. I think that we also went through a stage of selling very expensive juices. Every supermarket or shopping centre seemed to have a juice bar, and where you would pay about £4 for sort of freshly squeezed juice. I don't. It might be that I don't go shopping as much, or it might be that it's one of those things that sort of faded out. But I mean, I was probably as guilty as anybody as spending my £4 on some squashed oranges and a bit of ice. But I tend to think of it though as being a sort of maybe a noughties into early 2010s thing. But other than that, I'm not sure what else comes to mind. What
I'll tell you what. Well, the first thing that came to mind was a bit naughty, actually, and juices in the terms of from a sexual point of view. So just goes to show what a one-track mind I have. But also creative juices flowing, and things like that, and when they're sort of talking about ideas and things like that, and walking around the park and thinking, oh yes, we could do this and that and that. Last year with the very much with the book I was doing, and previously when we were doing A Woman for All Reasons, it's very much the creative juices can flow when I'm walking to work mostly as well, and I've got that time to think. But also, I mean, I used to have a juice pack that I used to take to work, and then not to work, to school, and I had a different flavour each day. Five Alive? Five Alive, that's right. Yeah. I remember those in the 80s, and I had a Ribena one day, and a Five Alive the next, and an apple juice and an orange juice. Juices are very actually, juices are very important to me because I always have a glass of fruit juice with my breakfast, and then Sundays is a little bit more elaborate because we're both in, so we usually sit down before we go to church and have a juice each, and have boiled eggs and toast and a bit, but juices. Ali's getting more and more into fruit juice. Juice. I know you.
I think you're right about creative juices.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm often working out storylines, or I usually kind of tend to think, I'm confident enough in my ideas that I'll get from A to B and work out the twists, but I'll think of different alternatives rather than just go for the first one that comes along. Hopefully,
there are things that just write themselves. Really, I mean, I remember that episode of or that chapter of Woman for All Reasons, where it was set in the children's play group, and that just one after the other, and I got, oh, that would be fun, and one thing led to another. So it's.
I think that's probably where my creative juices let me down. One of the few times where I really did get stuck as to what to do next, because I think time was we were getting quite big gaps between.
We were, I think, and I think we logically reached a point in the story where it was time to start giving the audience answers rather than questions all the time. So.
Yeah, I think because usually I'm a plot person. Well, I guess I'm a dialogue and plot person, but I feel like I was more. What I had been contributing was more character,
yeah,
and rather than plot. So I did feel like I was a little bit sort of. I was busy working with the characters I was writing for, or bringing in little, like the stuff I did, which totally took it away for a few seconds.
But in the
but then when I came to actually think, well, how is this going to end? I realised I wasn't that sort of up on what we've been doing from the story.
Yeah, whereas I think yes, it is terribly important, because I've sort of. I like to think I combine the two, really. I get very worried about plots and thinking, sort of, is this making sense? Is this interesting enough? Is this keeping people's attention? But the characters are fun to get into as well. So ideally, I think, the combo of the two is a nice one. But you did, to your credit, you did take the whole sort of scope of, for want of a better word, voyeurism, of the idea, using the internet, of other people looking in and to what extent other people are looking in, to the next level, which gave me something to bite on as well.
What I thought we could do for our next word is, I think we did this in the second episode. What I'll do is I'll generate 3 words, and you can pick which one you talk about.
Oh, right, okay.
If of course, you see 2, you think, oh, I would like to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
We can possibly do that afterwards, but choose one as your main word, and we might cover the other 2 as to whether we would have had anything to say or not. But so let me generate 3 words. Right. We've got 3 words. We've got throne, razor, or fertilizer.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, okay.
Throne. Razor.
Yeah.
Razor. Throne, razor, or fertilizer.
I guess I'll talk. I could say,
you want to kick us off?
I guess I don't think any of these jump out as being. I might say a little bit about each rather than picking one in this case, because I don't think any of them. But then, as we talk, maybe something else will come up. But with razor, for instance, I think I do sort of remember having to shave. I think for the first time, I sort of remember my dad sort of. But I mean, I never had a cutthroat razor. It was just an electric razor, so really it wasn't a big deal. The chances of hurting yourself with an electric razor is quite low. But I think I probably had to shave. I don't know, 11 at about the age of 11 or 12. But it's such a long time. Oh, such a long time ago.
Yeah.
But obviously, over the years, as I've grown, I suppose it's one of those things that people say if you've got a beard, oh, nice not to have to shave, but unless you are just going to grow a completely sort of groomed beard, then there is still shaving and trimming and cutting involved. I mean, I don't even do it to the level that a lot of people do with where they style it and sort of shape it and stuff. But the idea that having a beard or a goatee or whatever involves you not shaving is sort of ludicrously inaccurate, really. But would you like to say something about one of those words?
Yeah, I'm going to be slightly boring and actually go for razor too. I think the one thing that springs to mind actually is I was always fascinated when growing up with my dad's razors, because I think he had various different ones, and he would bring them out and assemble them, and I'd be fascinated by this long before that it was ever, I ever shaved myself. And I would, he would give them characters, and I've actually still got, I think it was my 3rd birthday, a birthday card from my dad saying, "Happy birthday from Daddy and Mr. Razor in his tail," and I think some other bits. I very much saw them as a kid. I very much saw them as characters. Razor wise, yes, I've had some razors in my time. I think probably I've gone through periods where I've had a go at wet shaving. I used to wet shave without it going wet, which probably wasn't a very good idea. And I, for some reason, a couple of years ago, I got it into my head to buy some shaving foam when I was between razors. I very much quickly got a razor for my birthday. I think my favourite type, I know it's not very not as strong as the ones with the heads, is the foil ones, because they're just easy to, and like the battery powered ones, which are, whereas the one I've got at the moment needs to be plugged into the lights in the bathroom, and the internal heads keep falling out, which means every time it goes, and I thought, oh dear, you don't like this, do you? And have to reassemble all the heads. So my current razor is a bit of a pain in the bum. So I think I'm still, I think, yes, but certainly portable. Ones that hold their charge are nice. The current one I've got doesn't hold its charge either. So, and yeah, when did I start? Well, I suppose I started shaving about 16. When I started work. I, of course, experimented very much with facial hair, rather disastrously in the 80s, rather more successfully in the 90s, and because we all had beards in the 90s, and you and Andy and so a lot of our old friends have still got them. But I suppose I'm going through periods of no beard, and then Ali came along and she was adamantly against beards. My previous 2 girlfriends have been very pro, so that determined things. It all changed a little bit in 2019 when we went to Edinburgh, and I thought I'd forgotten to take my razor, and to my surprise, she said, "Oh, grow a beard, see how you feel." And of course, she hadn't actually said this before, so I thought, let's give it a whirl. And by 3 or so weeks, I suppose I've been without for so long that I found it incredibly irritating. So I decided not to go ahead with it. Although some photographs do exist from that time with me with beard. So and of course inevitably at my age it came through grey. So there is slight evidence, photographic evidence of my my teenie's beard, or the very, very end of the teenie's beard. But I now also, since then, I've changed my whole pattern of shaving. because I've suddenly realised I don't need to shave every day. So I've shaved yesterday because I went to a funeral. I haven't shaved today. I was going to shave because we had guests tonight, and she isn't coming now, so I won't bother. So I'll probably shave tomorrow morning because it's just not with my colouring. It just isn't worth shaving every day.
I don't think, unless you've got anything particularly to say about those other two words, I think we'll just move on.
I can't think of anything apart from that. Game of Thrones, I suppose. Game of Thrones. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I've never seen it, and of course, it's the kind of thing that they go on and on and on about at work, and I've never seen it, so I can't come. I just don't.
I saw the first season, and I wasn't that excited about continuing onwards. But, right. Well, I think this time I might do 4 words. Let's. Okay. Well, we have television, we have thunder, we have coat, and we have chair.
Well.
I mean, television.
Television is almost too broad.
Yeah, we're involved in a whole podcast involved with television.
Well, yeah. Television. Yes, I mean television. For me. Yeah, I mean, I don't have Sky. Obviously, television was very important to me when I was a kid, but I don't have Sky now. And there's so much we want to watch we enjoy continuing to watch on DVD. We have Freeview. It's quite funny. I try more things on Talking Pictures, which is our main, of actual tuning into telly. That's our mainstay. We'll watch Public Eye and what's the other thing? We've got Rumpole of the Bailey during the week, and Saturdays are quite fun because there's some fun cheesy stuff. This morning, because I was at home and Ali was at work, she was sort of telling me all about because they run the cinema serial things like that they always used to have on a Saturday back in the 30s and 40s. And 50s, Champion the Wonder Horse, and one of these cheesy serials, from the golden age of cinema. So I thought, I've got a few things to do on the computer. Why didn't I just, settle at the sofa whilst I'm doing it and watch them? And they were quite fun. I don't sort of participate in much conversation about telly at work because it's all what's on the Sky channels and the other thing is they always talk about binge watching. Now I don't binge watch mostly. I have to say that I like to have some variety about what I'm watching, which is another reason I'm not mad about telly these days. And so like on an evening where if we might watch a Talking Pictures thing, I would have something of we'll have a drama DVD, and I like watching episodes just one or if it's like the American comedy Rules of Engagement we like, which we've got on DVD. We'll do a couple of episodes of that because once you've taken the adverts out, it's only about 19 minutes long, and they're fun and they're nice to have one after the other. But we would seldom watch more than 2 episodes of something, so it's just that we like to spin it out a bit. We'll do an episode a week of something, and because I suppose in a way it's how we were brought up. Sort of you have to wait until next week to find out, even if you know what's going on. But so yes, I have a rather retro relationship with television these days because of I prefer things to be the older-fashioned way of making telly. That's the bottom line. I'm sort of not impressed with the way they make telly these days. I just find it a lot more duller. But there you go.
Yeah, I mean, the only current shows I watch are Neighbours and Home and Away and Doctor Who when it's on. Our satellite sort of box isn't at its best. I think we probably need a new one, but Toby doesn't use it, so we have Netflix, so he watches mostly things on Netflix.
What does he like watching?
Well, there are quite a lot of different sci-fi and horror type shows, but usually they're sort of, the series these days are only like 10 episode seasons. The last few months I've gone all the way through Desperate Housewives because I saw the first few seasons at the time.
Lucky old Desperate Housewives.
And I actually have it on DVD, but I found I also had it on Prime, so I watched it on Prime, and I'm about 2 or 3 episodes left. It's actually one of those situations where I wished I had. Often you come back and you sort of, you remember why you stopped watching, but I watched The Walking Dead for years, but I guess sometimes it was very much like The Survivors, to the point of, come on, where are the zombies? I don't want it. I'm not
Bring
watching
on
this.
the zombies.
I've seen The Survivors. I don't want it to be like that. I've seen that. I want a bit more horror. And you just got fed up with the whole seasons where they had the same baddie. And towards the end of the time I watched it anyway. And with Desperate Housewives, I think it was more that I started dating somebody and then perhaps wasn't around on the nights it was on and lost track of when it was on. So I've sort of got to the 8 seasons of Desperate Housewives, and I'm sort of a bit sorry there's only 3 episodes or 2 episodes left for me to watch, because it's probably going out on a relative high with a sort of there's so much old TV. It's a shame if you only ever watch the sort of new things. The new things, I think, the trouble is people watch old TV, but they watch their favourites.
Yes.
Again and again and again, and sometimes we're guilty of that.
I'm certainly guilty of that. But I will try. It's like Talking Pictures will stick on things we've got on DVD, but we'll still watch them on Talking Pictures to give them the ratings, and because we enjoy watching it. I mean, Public Eye, I've got the 1969 season on DVD. Obviously we've seen it, but in the 16-17 years we've had the DVD, we've watched those episodes much more on Talking Pictures. Similarly, I've never owned a copy of The Champions, and my cousin lent it to me. Looked at the box sets about 9 years ago, and we rewatched them all because I don't think I'm not sure I'd seen them all, or if I had, I'd forgotten. And they're currently rewatching The Champions. Usually on a Sunday we'll do what we call our Sunday special. Ali will pick a series and we'll do it episode by episode throughout, and then I'll pick a series and we'll do it episode. But we've actually kind of curtailed that at the moment because they're showing Champions, which we haven't got, and we both fancy watching again. And so it's quite nice that we're kind of watching something that we don't have on DVD for a change.
My problem with Talking Pictures was that it was one of the channels that was affected by, as our Skybox became, or whatever the problem is.
Yeah.
It just became harder to get a lot of the channels I wanted, and I presumed at one point it was the bad weather was affecting reception, but I'm not sure that's the case. But I did go through a stage of looking ahead on the week and setting the. I think we talked about one of the armchair thrillers that the one with Ian McShane. I saw on there, saw the movie version and set it, and I would often do things like that, and then just kind of pick through what I'd recorded, and then I'd sometimes find that I'd set it for something, and then the weather or whatever it was had made it unwatchable. So
it seems to be only the 2 Sun TV ones that they've got the rights for, because Dead Man's Kit and High Tide. I've never seen any of the Thames one, which is odd because they have lots of Thames shows, so I'd love them to show Armchair Thriller. But no, Champions is fun because it's been 9 years since I've seen them all, and we obviously we haven't got the DVD, and I used to watch it in the 70s on Sunday afternoons. It's rather nice.
Yeah, I do. He's one of the ones I picked up the box set in the sale, but I haven't watched them all yet. But
I think it's one of those series where I kind of like it, and the stories are good romps, but the characters
Yeah.
don't really ignite. They're rather boring characters, and they haven't really got any sort of interests outside of their missions, and they haven't got you haven't got anything like the humour in the new with the new Avengers.
One of the other words that came up that I did want to mention as my word particularly is coat, because I was thinking over the years how I've gone through stages of wanting to have like a particular type of coat, or I remember in the 90s it wasn't really a bomber jacket would probably be. Would you say that's what Ace was wearing in Doctor Who?
Without a doubt, yes.
Yeah, I think there was that sort of mod jacket.
That's right.
That was very popular again in the mid 90s around Britpop time.
Yeah.
And I definitely had a coat that was a bit. I think I'm wearing it in that shot that often appears on Facebook of where I'm wearing my Blur T-shirt and.
What, from Tide of Freedom?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm wearing it at some point. If not in that photo, then around that time. But because that was a very. I mean, really, that's just what my mum would probably call a sort of summer coat, because it's not very thick, but it was more for the style at the time, that it was very sort of. It was a bit moddy, and over the years I've also. I was very keen on, and I struggled to get one that was quite right. But I always wanted a Paddington Bear coat. I don't remember if I had one as a child, but as an adult, I wanted one. And I remember my mum often she used to get clothes from the Grattan catalogue, and there was another catalogue she used, and I remember she got me a couple, and one of them I felt was sort of cheating at the duffel coat, because it had a zip underneath the buttons. And I thought, well, that's just
toggle or bust.
Yeah, you don't have both. And then I think I had another one which was more just. I mean, there was a stage where Primark was quite good for. I remember trying lots of. I mean, obviously, I also when I was slimmer, you had more option to try sort of things from these cheap shops, because Primark, for instance, tends to be quite, it doesn't have that much of a it doesn't tend to be very kind to the larger gentlemen.
I do remember meeting you at it was about 2004, meeting you at the Salisbury Cathedral, just outside Salisbury Cathedral, and you were wearing a duffel coat then. I think you were saying it reminded you a little bit of that character from Image of the Fendar. I think I'm pretty certain I had a duffel coat as a kid. I certainly had a duffel coat as a teenager, because I remember I have a photograph of one of the bonfire nights from '83, I don't think I'd probably get away with one now.
Some of these things are a bit age. Sort of. I went through a step. The other thing, the last one I was going to mention was that I never really, because my dad didn't like denim type things. I never had much denim until I was well into my 20s, I went through a stage where I had a couple of denim jackets, and I started putting badges on them.
Yeah,
and they got one of them was more of a basic, quite a thin one, and then they had another one which was had a sort of fur lining inside.
Yeah,
and was probably more for the winter, but they were both nice and snug. But I did cover them full of badges, and I was also around the time. This is probably in the noughties, probably when I was using different sites where I could do like a Mass of Commons badge, or a Charlie Gurr badge, or a Dealey badge. So I'd have badges that I bought, or pop badges, and then also some of my own badges, and then I also had bags that I had badges on. But they used to. Eventually, you'd suddenly look and realise, oh, that one's dropped off somewhere. Where's that? Not really nice badge. So it did get a bit sort of. A little bit sad. I have got. I think I'm a bit too big for my last surviving one. But
I love denim actually. I the kind of shirts I was probably the coolest thing I was wearing was I went through a stage of wearing denim shirts from the 90s onwards. I don't remember ever wearing them in the 80s, and I wish I had, because my wardrobe was a complete car crash in the 80s. But some of the Sutton Parks episodes where I'm wearing the denim, I thought, whoa, my gosh. Yes, and I actually, it hasn't aged really. Denim, you can still get away with wearing it, and I'm looking for a proper, even now as we speak, I'm looking for a proper denim, either jacket or shirt. I know we were supposed to be talking about coats, but I have had some denim jackets which have been nice. The trouble is they're not quite as useful because I tend to. In the hotter weather, I tend to wear body warmers now, kind of because I like pockets. If there was a denim one with lots of secure pockets, they hardly ever have secure pockets. If they had, I'd be right on there. I think, yes, there was a few disasters that got the rise taken out of them very much in the 80s with the waterproofs and duffel coats and... but coats wise, I wear a long black coat now. But the thing is, I would really like to expand the lighter jackets. But despite the fact there's only two of us, we seem to have endless coats. And I know there's a lighter tweedy one that I don't wear so much. That's winter coat wise, simply because it hasn't got inner pockets. And I much prefer inner pockets. Breast pockets are my favourite pocket ever. Seat pockets on the bum, ludicrous invention. I don't know who thought that was a good idea because you sit on everything.
I'm too hot blooded for things sitting on. If I had a bit of if I had a. And it's not that I'm leaking moisture, but no. I'm just hot. If I had a bit of paper in my back pocket and I sat down on it and it was really like on a hot summer day, it would just be a load of mush.
Paper mache, it's a silly invention, the bum pocket. I don't know what they were thinking of. But breast pockets I like. I mean, I use breast pockets all the time for my pass at work. But I think maybe I've embraced the pocket much more over the years. And I
mean, when I went and had my, I have got quite a big coat that I got from, I can't remember where I got it from now, but I got it mail order, so it was a bit of a risk that it was going to be the right size, but it was. But it's also quite warm. When I went and had my first COVID jab, it's the first time I've been out for ages, and it was a really hot sunny day, and I was having trouble with my hip that day and getting about, so I got quite warm. And it's one of those coats that really is probably made for the. But it was that period. I hadn't been out for ages. I wasn't quite sure. It was because we're talking about early March. I wasn't quite sure where we were sitting with. Was it winter weather? Was it spring weather? And of course, when they do with the one I go to, when I got my jab, they gave me a bit of paper and wrote something on it, and I put it in my top pocket, but. And then I sort of went on my way home, but sort of, I was quite hot and bothered by the time I got home, and I sort of went to take the bit of card out of the top pocket, and it's okay, but had it been in there much longer, it probably would have started to dissolve because the heat coming off my body from it being a hot day with a big thick coat.
I like jackets, so I like chance to. Dress up in jacket, not necessarily ties, but sort of have like a denim shirt and a black jacket, and just go to parties.
I did go for a stage of having jackets, but I kind of wore the jackets a bit as a almost like a summer. I'm not sure about summer, but a coat almost.
Yeah.
And again, I had badges on it. They were just ones I bought. And I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with them, and they weren't really suitable for work.
Yeah.
So I sort of wore them as a casual jacket.
In the 90s, I went through phases. You remember my leather jackets in the 90s, don't you? I think there was one that wasn't. There was one I bought. I think the first one I bought was the Marie Curie place the cancer place in Catherine Street in 1991. I wore it for the Series E, the Blake 7 video that we did. Don't think that was quite good. So the later one was much better. It can be seen on numerous episodes of Sutton Park. So I think, yes, I think the later leather jacket was much better.
Yeah. I got a leather jacket because the thing again, I think in the late 90s they were quite, my brother and I both quite keen on having one, and we went to the Lake District and we did some episodes of Sutton Park in the Lake District. And I think on the way we stopped at Marks and Spencer's, and my dad, this was still the very end of sort of family holidays, I suppose. My brother was still at school, and I went with them, and we went to Marks and Spencer's, and my dad treated us both to a leather jacket,
Blimey.
which I wore for quite a long.
I can't imagine your
time.
dad approving of leather jackets.
Yeah, don't know.
I remember your brother's leather jacket as well.
Yes.
But no, they were very much a mainstay for both of us in the 90s, weren't they? And I used to long army surplus winter coats was the other thing I always used to wear in the 90s.
I'm not really tall enough for those sorts of coats.
No.
Or long Tom Baker scarves. But you've got the height.
Oh, bless. The thing is, though, I mean, I wore a top hat to my wedding, but I still wonder whether I might have been a bit too tall for it. But I don't know. But I mean, I also, leather jacket wise, I mean, I wouldn't be averse to, if I found one at a reasonable price, I wouldn't be averse, and I tried it on and it looked okay. I wouldn't be averse to having one now. I think I just wore them out. I think that was probably it. Or maybe I've just got too fat. I can't remember when I stopped wearing them now. Or whether I was still wearing them in the noughties when I was seeing Ali. I don't know. Simply can't remember.
Hello listeners, it is me, Cuthbert the Robot. We pause at this point of the episode before the gentlemen discuss their final series of words to play you something rather special. We have some new music for you. This time it is by our friend and listener Muffley, who has been a big supporter of this little show for quite some time. He has sent us a few audio messages in the last year, so you've heard his voice, but we are hoping to record more with him soon. Anyway, he has plans for a podcast of his own, but it's all very top secret at the moment. He sent us this tune, which I think he'll be using on his new show, but he was keen for us to debut it here first. We're very excited to do so. The piece is entitled Mar Vivo, and here it is now. Once again, thank you to Muffley for allowing us to showcase it on the Shy Life podcast. Enjoy! Exclamation.
Okay, well, we're coming towards the end of the show, so I think we should probably do one more word before we go. And I'm going to...
One for the road.
Yeah, I think because some of the words, where we've just done one word, sometimes it's been a little bit too limiting. So I think possibly the way forward is to give us a choice of 4 or so, and then choose one of them. So at least, because some of them are just too obscure. So I'll do 4 again and pick one. Okay, we've got. It almost sounds like some sort of bizarre dinner party, but we have clay, lasso, chicken, and sausage. I should have said it the other way around. We have chicken, sausage, clay, and lasso. Sounds like a very exciting dinner party.
Yeah, I've made you a clay, chicken, lasso. I'm going to go for clay. One of my favourite things at infant school was, apart from the Wendy House, I used to like the Wendy House. I would recommend Wendy Houses to anybody. I was clay, doing stuff with clay. Now, 2 things, taking the clock back to 1975, the 2 things that were I was keen on, were Doctor Who, which I was getting interested in, and oil tanks. You know, these kind of old-fashioned, chunky, square oil tanks. I noticed them on the end of buildings, and for some reason, it's kid logic, I became interested in the different varieties. I noticed there was one outside outside the church, which is just opposite us. We could see from the window. There was a green one, and there was a rusty red one round by the college, and it was ridiculous. I used to get my mum to drive all around the surrounding areas to see whether we could find an oil tank, and I used to call it I almost did a sort of completely unnecessary inventory, which for some reason I used to call the friendly tank list. And there was never a corresponding hostile tank list. They're all friendly. Bizarre. But anyway, in clay making, I made a clay model of the I suppose it was just outside the window, so I could see it. But of the oil tank in the churchyard, slightly undemanding in shape for that. The other thing I made out of clay was the Nerva beacon from the Doctor Who adventure Ark in Space, which was like a beacon. Well, it was a beacon, and it was later turned up as the Ganymede beacon in Revenge of the Cybermen. So it was yeah. Although I couldn't remember the name of it, I used to call it the Belisha beacon. But no, I wish I'd kept it now. I probably would have dried out and crumbled to dust long years ago. But I did enjoy working in clay at infant school. I don't think they ever let you near clay ever again after that. So.
Yeah, my association with clay was relatively brief, but I actually have at least one item that still exists, which must be 35 years old at least. And I can see it as I sit here now. When I was at that Chaffing Grove School in Salisbury for a couple of years, I did manage to get into a sort of... I wasn't very artistic, but, it wasn't without willing or interest. It's just that, what I came out with wouldn't necessarily be that amazing, or I needed more sort of encouragement or more sort of assistance from the teacher than some people. But the good thing about it is that they did properly stick what we'd made in a kiln and let us paint them and things. And I think I made a couple of ashtray type things, and I think at least one of them holds paper clips back at my parents' house. But the thing I'm watching is probably I I don't know. I mean, I guess it might have even appeared in Sutton Park at some point, but it's about the height of a small tomato ketchup bottle, and it's just like a figurine with a hand that sort of points out, and the other arm is sort of almost like a teapot. I don't know whether that other hand is shoved in a pocket or whether it's, but you're left with a loop which you could pick up but it doesn't have a purpose. It's not a teapot, and it has a little face, it's a little bit like a mixture between Morph, who was a clay figure on kids' TV, and that horrible Nestine doll in Terror of the Autons.
Oh, yeah, Terror of the Autons.
It's somewhere between the two. You can well imagine it coming to life and strangling somebody. But it's survived since about 1985.
Well, I imagine if it comes to life and strangle people, it has survived.
Yes, but I mean, how many people still have bits of pottery they made 35 years ago? I don't know. But
I don't think I have. No, I as I say, I think there is a bit of pottery that I think it's a cat on its back or some squiddly drawing of something or other. But there's an ashtray I think the mum had that was part of an art class. I suspect it was one of the art classes that Dad did when he was in the old manor. So
I think
I think
my artistic endeavours are so few and far between that I have kept them to my bosom. I have that gentleman, clay creature, and I have a painting I did with oil. Well, it wasn't really a painting because it was done with oil-based crayons of a scary blue snowman, and I've got that in a frame on my wall. I can see that as well. That's from even that's 10 years old now. But I went through a stage where I went out with somebody who was, had artistic moments and had done a few quite interesting artistic things, and we went through stages when we were going out where we tried to do art, and I did a few bits and pieces, and I do quite like to doodle when I'm, but it's the difference between doodling and actually doing something that people might think was I'm no August Evans, let's say. Talking of those, the other words that we generated, when I see the word lasso, I always think of Wonder Woman's lasso of truth.
I always think of Wonder Woman too.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind being lassoed by Wonder Woman.
Well, I know. That's she breaks down barriers. She does. But no, there was I suppose the only lasso I've ever written for is in a 1980 Magnus editor called Deadlock of the Nemesmans, where the reoccurring baddie gets lassoed. Mm-hmm. How this character actually acquires a lasso technique when he's never shown any inclination of it before, it just seemed a good idea at the time. But yeah,
as far as chickens are concerned, Troby, Warren and I have been playing a lot of this computer game called Fortnite, and serious people who like to play it, you can run around being serious, but you can also be very, very silly, and you can hire characters that are dressed just like giant chickens, and it did get to a stage in the game where there was a friendly character who was a chicken, but then also if you got to a certain level, because you can change your appearance, you can have lots of different, you can go out dressed as an Amazon warrior, or as a robot, or and as you get further on, you have more options. They got to the stage where the chicken was also one of the disguises of your opponents. So sometimes you could be running around and you think, is that the chicken I just hired, or is that a baddie? Oh, just a minute, it's 3 chickens now. You can get quite humorously distracting. Like, what's going on there? But,
I chicken wise, I suppose a significant chicken episode of with Ali and I is the first film we ever went to see at the cinema was Chicken Run. Just a week or so after we started seeing each other. Now she's a big Great Escape fan, So she, on one occasion, I think on the Friday night, she took me to the cinema to watch Chicken Run, and on the Saturday night, she sat me down in front of The Great Escape and showed me all the bits that Chicken Run lampooned.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, ideally it should have been the other way round.
Yeah.
But no, I remember that particularly because Ali was sort of so busy at the cinema showing me all the bits that were Great Escape, and somebody behind us did the perennial "You're talking all the way through this."
Of course, not quite chicken, but near enough. You bequeathed me Ben the Hen. That was
I did. Yes,
character. That was a character from my editor, but obviously the one you bequeathed me was a knitted version of Ben the Hen that your mum had made.
Yes,
that your mum had made.
I think Mum made that about 1980. And I remember for ages the base was done, and the head took ages and ages. But it was, I think, it was more based on. I mean, Ben the Hen didn't look a bit like that. That was, he was more robotic. But Ben the Hen was originally played by a goose. When I used to reenact the show, the very, very early episodes, there was a kind of rather scraggy goose toy that my sister had. And she was 17 at the time, so she long abandoned it. And I think that was Ben the Hen, because I can throw him around the room and he was floppy. But I think gradually it filtered through my. K9 had just come on as Doctor Who as well, and I think it gradually filtered down to my brain that a hen couldn't do all these things. So I made him a robot a few weeks later, and I used to like playing the fiddle. I seem to remember. For one reason or another, I don't know, but maybe he played it to the farmer that created it. But
it's debatable. It's debatable as to whether. Certainly the knitted version's finest moments probably came in the 90s when Lee made him a robotic costume to sit in.
He did. Very good it was too, and it actually he when he did the Magnet Editor tribute for the 20th anniversary in 1997, Ben appears in the costume, and it's very well done. He was nothing but a purist, our Lee. He really did try to make it as authentic as possible. Ben
continues to sit in my bedroom even to this very day.
I'm delighted about that.
He doesn't seem to age. He doesn't seem. I don't think he's any. What has he been with me for like 25 years now or something?
Yes, it's a lot longer than. I mean, when did I bequeathed him to you? I think. My second episode, which was January '93, by which time he was only 13 years old. So he's been with you far longer than he was with me, which is crazy.
But he doesn't look his age, and he doesn't seem to get any more haggard or anything. Some bears seem to, or toys seem to. The stuffing starts to. Without even doing anything to them, the stuffing starts to degrade within inside them and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think even then he was. And the last time he appeared in either the main, I think he was in the pilot for Life After. But he never appeared in Life After because we were all terribly. He wanted the series to be all terribly grown up and I don't. The only robots we had were murderous ones, or But no, there was no place for him in. I think he started appearing less and less as the magazine.
It was difficult to do the voice that I did for him on Sutton Park was sort of tried to be squawky and talk, which wasn't necessarily that easy on my throat. So.
No, I didn't see the Magnet Editor Ben as having any kind of voice attributes to a head.
I don't think
it was more like K9. It was more like a robotic voice.
I don't know that I could even do the Ben the Hen voice now. I remember thinking
oh, when I heard it. I wasn't quite expecting that.
It was sort of like
It was like a robot. It was like a robot Pam
it was sort of like Scrappy Doo, Scrappy Doo mixed with Pam Ayres.
I would say Pam Ayres mixed with Benny Hill. You know, because they all had that. You know that.
Whilst trying to squawk.
Yes. It was kind of like
not
a bit like Pam Ayres transformed into a chicken.
I think that's what we've got time for this episode. So we've certainly talked about a wide range of.
We have,
different topics.
you know, we've gone into zones that other beers cannot reach.
Other podcasts can't reach either.
Other podcasts cannot reach. Yeah, and that keeps it fresh all the time.
I'm sure we can do another one of these in the future. But anyway, well, thank you very much, and thanks for listening, listeners. And join us again soon. We'll be back. Well, I'm not sure what we'll be doing next time. You'll just have to wait and see. All right. Okay. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
The last one we're going to do for extra material is from my bag of dice that we've mentioned before. I'm going to put the hand in, and I've got a dice, and I'll put it, and I'll roll it. And okay, what is that? It is a boat.
A boat
could be a. I would say more of a. No, I suppose it could be anything. It could kind of not a sailing ship, but it's just a generic boat.
Yes, I can think of two things. Do you want to start us this time?
No, you go.
Okay. Well, I kind of thought boat one bit, but when I was a wee lad, my mum used to collect for the lifeboat people. Next door but one to us in the beaches was a guy called Robin Harris, who I don't know if he was a lifeboat man himself, but he was very, very heavily involved with the lifeboats. And Mum used to collect it in this plastic lifeboat, this little miniature plastic lifeboat, which used to fascinate me, in a lovely burnt orange, as lifeboats tended to be. And whilst she was collecting down the road, she used to go door to door, which I think probably mercifully is kind of frowned upon now. And she collecting for the lifeboat people, and she used to take me along dressed in a sou'wester as the cute the cute kid. Because I was cute, but believe it or not, I was cute in those days. But yes, in a little sou'wester, holding this boat, presumably looking pathetic, sort of, please give her to the lifeboats, mister. We tend to, charity-wise, we tend to sort of mix and match a little bit, and but lifeboats is definitely on our radar. And I think one of Ali's relatives was either her gran bought a lifeboat with her some of her inheritance.
Well, I've been up to Dunbar with Callum, because that's the seaside. That's where a lot of his family came from. We used to go up there quite a lot, and one of my favourite shops in Dunbar is the lifeboat shop. There's always lots of thick trinkets and things to buy, or postcards or cards.
And I think the lifeboats are hugely undervalued, hugely underfunded, considering that I find I'm much more not wishing to offend anybody, I'm much more for people like that actually go out and save lives rather than sort of military, which are sort of, but so because they are volunteers and some of them do die, and it's extremely brave of them to do it for free. I mean, why haven't they got a professional lifeboat crew? Why is it always volunteers? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do get paid. I don't know, but it's an incredibly valuable part of any community. And echoing what you said about shops, I have to say, yes, I always get a little bit excited about lifeboat shops. I think St Ives springs immediately to mind. They've got a good lifeboat shop, and lifeboat shops are the only place where you can get a thing of beauty which is very rare these days, and that's a pound coin holder. Now, pound coin. Now, obviously, cash has played a lot less of a part of our lives since COVID, but pound coin holders were all the rage when I was a kid, and but not so much when I was a kid, but when I started work, and you had the tall ones and the flick off ones, and you had the circular ones. Lifeboat stations are the only place you can get them now, and to me that's ludicrous, because the times I've got pound coin holders when I've been in a queue, I've been at the till, I've got pound coin holders out, and kids have said, "Oh wow, that's a really good idea." I thought, well, why did they ever stop them? They really are useful. I've always got one in my wallet. Good for. I mean, that's a minor point, but good for lifeboat people. And even now, I still get a sort of the thought of the lifeboats and that little boat I used to hold when I was a wee lad. It still gives me the warm and fuzzies, I think.
Goodbye, 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 goodbye.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
Oh dear, what's going on now? Oh, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Let's go.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
I think when it comes to me, I would say two sort of points or two memories or thoughts is, one of them is something I'd like to do. I've always kind of wanted to go on a cruise. I don't think I could have done it in my 30s because I was too, rushing around to places, and being stuck on one place would have probably been. But now it's sort of, I'm not even sure I'd have the energy to go on day trips and rushing around different things, but I would certainly give it a good go. And I think, just from a podcasting point of view, to have the changing environment and the changing things happening that would truly, that would perfectly suit me now. But one of the ones that we've got is there's a company that sort of goes around Scandinavia, and it's using a postal boat. I don't know if it still is a postal boat, but or whether it used to be or what. Or anyway, but we've noticed since COVID, they now do quite a lot of trips from the UK up into the Scotland, up into the Isle of Scilly and the Scilly Isles, and then or the Scottish Isles, or over to Ireland. Or if I don't do the Scandinavian thing, it might be quite nice to go up to Iceland or up to the top of see you can do the Northern Lights and things. So that's something I've kind of always been quite interested in. But my other memory would be one involving my dad and I in, I think it was 98 or 99. It was certainly at the turn of the year, so maybe late 98. And he and I went on what some people might call a booze cruise, but as you can imagine, a booze cruise with my dad didn't involve either of us getting drunk.
It doesn't really follow, really, does it?
No, we may have had an alcoholic beverage with our dinner, but we didn't get drunk. But it was interesting because it's I think it's the only time I can think of where he and I went away for a little trip, just he and I, and it has a sort of sad backdrop to it initially, but in a way it's fitting that something nice also happened, because on the way to the harbour we popped in, we saw Roger, who was in hospital, our family friend, and that was the last time I ever saw him, because he was sort of in a very sad place.
Very poorly, wasn't he?
Yes. But anyway, we this was something that we did. This trip to France was already planned, my dad and I, and we went on a boat, like a ferry, which is very similar to the Dice, and it was very much like that dice that I rolled, and we slept overnight, because I mean, when I think of going on ferries to like the Isle of Wight or even when I've been from like the Channel Islands to San Malo and things like that, they're very quick journey. The idea, it just doesn't seem like you could, have to sleep on a boat. But I guess we went quite late. We probably sailed at midnight and arrived at 5 or 6, so we probably didn't get a proper night's sleep. Obviously, it's a car ferry, so. And I guess we went to some supermarkets. I don't remember that bit. I just remember going around some French towns. I remember going into a lovely church. And although it was December, and this will be captured by Sutton Park, I remember the lovely sun coming through the stained glass windows, and it being sort of, you couldn't have asked for better weather, particularly that time of year. Any time of year, I mean, it probably was cold, but in December you don't really remember if it's cold, if it's sunny.
No.
Of course I was doing Sutton Park, and lapping up the locations. I had my own personal driver who would take me to some nice locations. When we were waiting to get the ferry back, went to some restaurant, and it was like there were lots of little, I don't know if they were prawns or if they were smaller than prawns, but they were in their shells, and we were like, are we supposed to eat the shells? Or are we supposed to, they looked like there were hundreds of them on the plate. They were small. Are we supposed to sit here and pick the shells off 100 prawns and get a tiny bit of prawn each? We really weren't quite sure how you ate them in this case, because it's not like eating these massive shrimps or lobsters where you have to pull things off. I remember us having that and then coming back. But so it was sort of one of the few times I ever did anything like that with my dad. Sort of our very gentrified booze cruise.
That's quite nice. I'd forgotten about that.
And also, nice that it fell into the time when I had I had my video camera going and was able to save that part of the trip.
Yay!
And I think some of the audio of that has appeared on episodes of the Shy Life podcast. And maybe there might be one or two bits on YouTube.
But now turn to that bit on your...
Yes. So that's my thoughts about the ferry. Or the boat, for want of a better word.
Yes.
I think we'll have to do more dice.
More
for the dice. Certainly, I mean, obviously that's a bit limited because there's only six sides and 10 dice, so there's 60 words, I suppose. That's quite a lot, I suppose.
I was going to say, especially if the internet goes down. Or the internet goes down, we won't be able to talk at all, I suppose.
I'll just have to text you. Talk about boats for 10 minutes, and I'll talk about boats.
Texty. Oh my thumb.
Oh my God, there's nothing I like better is when another new episode of the Shy Life podcast comes out. Boy, I hope Nick Goodman is on this episode. I think that was a wonderful episode.
515. 515.
I don't know, but sometimes this show is really weird.
515. That's all we got time for, folks.